The wrench slipped from Owen Reed's hands and clattered against the metal deck plating. He cursed under his breath and picked it up, wiping the grease on his already dirty coveralls. Behind him, his 12-year-old son Liam sat on a tool crate, swinging his legs and watching the other species walk past the repair bay entrance. "Dad, why does that one have 4 arms?" Liam pointed at a passing alien with purple skin. "That's a Rothani. They evolved on a high-gravity world. Extra arms help them balance." Owen twisted the final bolt into place on the engine panel. "Hand me that scanner, would you?" Liam jumped off the crate and brought the device over. Owen ran it across the engine components, nodding at the readings. 3 weeks of work on this Dravik merchant ship, and he was finally done. The vessel belonged to a trading company that hauled exotic goods across 6 systems. They paid well, or at least they were supposed to. Crossroads Station hummed with activity around them. The massive orbital platform served as neutral ground where hundreds of species conducted business. Owen had worked here for 5 years, building a reputation as a mechanic who could fix anything. He had brought Liam during school break, thinking his son should see what life was like beyond Earth. "This place smells weird," Liam said. "That's recycled air mixed with about 50 different alien biochemistries." Owen closed the engine panel and gathered his tools. "Come on, let's go find Captain Suroth and get paid." They walked through the maze of corridors that connected different sections of the station. Liam stayed close to his father, eyes wide at the variety of beings they passed. A group of insectoid Krivians clicked past them. 2 floating jellyfish-like creatures drifted by overhead. A massive furry species Owen didn't recognize had to turn sideways to fit through a doorway. The Dravik ship was docked at Bay 17. Owen had his payment tablet ready, showing the itemized work he had completed. The contract was clear: 15,000 credits for engine repair and system upgrades. It was enough to pay rent for 3 months and put some aside for Liam's education. Captain Suroth waited in the cargo bay with 3 of his crew. The Dravik were tall and reptilian, with gray scales and yellow eyes that had vertical pupils. They wore elaborate harnesses that marked their rank in the trading company. "Captain Suroth, repairs are complete." Owen held up his tablet. "All systems are running at optimal efficiency. Your jump drive will perform 20% better than before." Suroth took the tablet and glanced at it for barely 2 seconds before tossing it back. "The work is unacceptable." Owen caught the tablet before it hit the ground. "Excuse me?" "You heard me, human. The engine still makes a rattling sound. The power distribution is uneven. I'm not paying for substandard work. That's not true. I can show you the diagnostic reports. Everything is within normal parameters." Owen pulled up the data on his tablet. "See? All green readings." Suroth leaned down until his face was inches from Owen's. His breath smelled like sulfur. "Are you calling me a liar?" "I'm saying the work is done correctly. You contracted me to do a job and I did it." One of the other Dravik crew members laughed. It was a harsh barking sound. "Listen to the human. He thinks he can argue with us." "Dad, maybe we should just go," Liam whispered, tugging on Owen's sleeve. Owen wanted to leave. Every instinct told him to walk away. But 15,000 credits was a lot of money. He had spent 3 weeks working on their ship. He had bills to pay and a son to feed. "I'm not leaving without payment. We had a contract." Suroth's yellow eyes narrowed. "You should have left when you had the chance." The captain nodded to his crew. They moved fast, faster than Owen expected. 2 of them grabbed his arms and dragged him toward the bay entrance. Owen struggled, but they were stronger than him. Much stronger. "Let go of me." "Liam, run!" But Liam didn't run. He followed, shouting at the Dravik to release his father. They ignored him. The Dravik hauled Owen into the main concourse, the wide-open area where traders and travelers from across the galaxy conducted business. Hundreds of beings stopped what they were doing to watch. Owen saw humans in the crowd, but they looked away. He saw other species, but none of them moved to help. Station security stood near the entrance, 2 armed guards in gray uniforms. Owen made eye contact with one of them, a Rothani with 4 arms. The guard looked at him for a moment, then deliberately turned his back. The first punch caught Owen in the stomach. He doubled over, gasping for air. The second hit his face and he tasted blood. They dropped him to the deck and then the kick started. "Stop! Please stop!" Liam was screaming, trying to push past the wall of onlookers. Someone help him. Nobody helped. Owen tried to protect his head with his arms. He heard ribs crack. Pain exploded through his left arm as something broke. The world became a blur of gray scales and yellow eyes and the taste of copper in his mouth. Through the haze of pain, he heard Suroth's voice. This is what happens when humans forget their place. You are weak. You are scavengers. The galaxy tolerates your presence because you are useful, nothing more. Liam finally broke through the crowd. The boy threw himself at the nearest Dravik, fists flying. The alien backhanded him casually, sending Liam sprawling across the deck. Owen tried to stand, tried to reach his son, but his body wouldn't respond. Suroth spat on Owen's face. The saliva was thick and burned slightly. Consider this a lesson, human. Know your place. The Dravik walked away, laughing among themselves. The crowd dispersed quickly, returning to their business as if nothing had happened. Owen lay on the cold deck plating, blood pooling beneath him. Every breath sent fire through his broken ribs. Liam crawled over to him, tears streaming down his face. Dad, please get up. I'm okay, Owen lied. He wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. He had just been beaten in front of his son while hundreds watched and did nothing. Help me. Help me stand. With Liam's support, Owen managed to get to his feet. His left arm hung useless at his side. Blood dripped from his nose and mouth. He looked around at the beings going about their business, and something cold settled in his chest. Not anger, not yet. Something colder and harder than anger. Let's go home, Liam said quietly. Yeah. Owen put his good arm around his son's shoulders. Let's go home. As they limped toward the human section of the station, Owen made a promise to himself. This would not stand. He didn't know how yet, but somehow, some way, there would be justice for what happened here today. His son had watched him get beaten while the galaxy stood by. That wound went deeper than any broken bone. The galaxy had just taught him that humans were considered weak, that they could be hurt without consequence, that their contracts and their dignity meant nothing. Owen Reed was going to teach the galaxy a very different lesson. He just needed to figure out how. 6 months had changed everything. Owen sat in his small apartment on Earth, surrounded by data screens that cast blue light across his tired face. Empty coffee cups littered the desk. He had barely slept in days. The bruises from the beating had faded, but other wounds remained fresh. Liam was in his room, probably gaming or watching videos. The boy barely spoke anymore. Something had broken inside him the day he watched his father get beaten. The therapist said it was trauma, that it would take time. But Owen saw the anger in his son's eyes, the same cold fury that burned in his own chest. The video had gone viral across human networks. Someone on Crossroads had recorded the whole thing. Owen being dragged into the concourse. The beating. Liam screaming for help while everyone watched. Within days, billions of humans had seen it. There were protests outside Galactic Council buildings. Human politicians demanded action. The Council's response came in an official statement. The incident occurred during a private trade dispute between contracted parties. Local station security deemed no intervention necessary. This matter falls outside Galactic Council jurisdiction. Translation: humans didn't matter enough to protect. Owen had filed complaints, lawsuits, formal protests. All of them hit the same wall. The Dravik Trade Consortium controlled Crossroads security. They controlled the judges who reviewed the case. They had friends in the council. Captain Suroth faced no charges. He was still out there, still doing business, probably laughing about the human he had put in his place. But Owen hadn't spent 6 months filing complaints. He had spent them researching. His screen showed fragments of data pulled from archives across a dozen systems. Ancient texts, forgotten navigation charts, archaeological reports marked as low priority. He had followed threads that most people dismissed as myth or fantasy. The Sarn, dragon-like beings who supposedly ruled the galaxy thousands of years ago. Every spacefaring species had stories about them. Massive creatures who could fly between worlds without ships. Beings of honor and terrible power who maintained peace through strength. Most scholars said they were legends. Primitive cultures misunderstanding some ancient technology or extinct species. But Owen had found something the scholars missed. He had found navigation data. The star charts were hidden in a Krivian database filed under historical fiction and cultural mythology. But the coordinates were real. They pointed to a region of space now designated as forbidden territory. No explanation why, just old markers warning ships to stay away. Owen had used the last of his savings to buy a ship. Not much of one. The freighter was 40 years old. its hull patched in a dozen places, its jump drive held together by hope and repair tape. But it could fly, and that was enough. He had hired a crew of 3. Cal, an engineer who asked no questions as long as the pay was good. Priya, a pilot who had lost her license for flying too recklessly but still knew how to navigate jump points. And Boris, a weapons tech who had served in Earth's small defense fleet before getting discharged for punching an officer. They were the only ones willing to follow coordinates into forbidden space on the word of a beaten mechanic chasing legends. Owen stood up from his desk and walked to Liam's room. He knocked softly before opening the door. His son sat on the bed staring at his tablet. Combat training videos played on the screen. Liam had been teaching himself to fight. "I'm leaving tomorrow," Owen said. Liam looked up. 12 years old, but his eyes looked older. "How long?" "A year, maybe less. There's a salvage opportunity. Could pay off everything we owe and then some." It was a lie. Owen hated lying to his son, but he couldn't tell him the truth. He was chasing dragons based on mythology and desperation. If he was wrong, he would waste a year and come home with nothing. If he was right, "You're going to look for them, aren't you?" Liam said quietly. "Look for who?" "Whatever's out there that can make the Dravik pay." Liam set down his tablet. "I'm not stupid, Dad. I see what you've been researching." Owen sat on the edge of the bed. "I need to do something. I can't just let what happened stand." "Then take me with you." "No." "Why not? I was there. It happened to me, too. That's exactly why you're staying here. You're going to stay with your Aunt Rachel. You're going to go to school. You're going to be a kid." Liam's hands clenched into fists. "I don't want to be a kid. I want to be strong enough so nobody can do that to us again." Owen pulled his son into a hug. Liam resisted for a moment, then buried his face in his father's shoulder. "I'm going to make this right," Owen whispered. "I promise. When I come back, things will be different." He hoped it wasn't another lie. The next day, Owen's ship limped away from Earth's orbital platforms. The freighter shuddered and groaned as it built up speed. Cal reported that 3 different systems were operating at less than optimal efficiency. Priya said the navigation computer was older than she was. Boris found that the weapons were outdated and barely functional. None of it mattered. Owen wasn't planning to fight anyone. He was planning to find something everyone else thought was dead. The journey took weeks. They made small jumps following the coordinates Owen had pieced together. The region of space they entered was empty. No stations, no colonies, no traffic, just dead systems with dying stars. "This is depressing," Priya said from the pilot seat. 3 dead worlds and a red giant that's seen better days. "Whatever was here, it's long gone." Owen studied the scanner readings. "Take us to the second planet. There's something in the southern hemisphere." "Define something, because all I'm seeing is rocks and more rocks." "Biosignatures. Faint, but they're there, underground." Cal looked up from his engineering station. "Biosignatures? In this system?" "That's impossible. There's barely enough heat from that star to keep water liquid. Take us down anyway." They landed in a massive canyon that cut through the planet's crust like a wound. The air was thin and cold. Owen suited up and took a small exploration team down to the canyon floor. Ancient machinery covered in dust lined the walls. Technology that looked both organic and mechanical, nothing like what any current species used. At the end of the canyon, they found an entrance. Massive doors carved with images of winged creatures. Dragons. They were sealed. But the mechanism still worked after Owen spent an hour puzzling out the controls. The doors opened with a sound like thunder. Beyond them, a tunnel led down into darkness. Owen activated his suit lights and descended. The tunnel went deep, deeper than he expected, miles into the planet's core. The temperature rose as they went deeper. The walls changed from carved rock to something that looked grown rather than built. And then they reached the cavern. It stretched beyond the range of his lights. Owen's scanner couldn't find the far wall. The ceiling was lost in shadow above. And everywhere, covering the floor like a carpet of scales and wings, thousands of dragons slept. They were massive. Even curled in hibernation, the smallest was twice the size of his ship. Their scales were covered in frost, and their breathing was so slow that minutes passed between breaths. Ancient machinery hummed around them, keeping them alive, keeping them sleeping. Owen walked among them, too amazed to be afraid. These were the Sarn, not legends, not myths, real living dragons sleeping in the dark while the galaxy forgot they existed. He approached the nearest one, a female with deep red scales. Her head alone was the size of a cargo container. Without thinking clearly, driven by desperation and hope, Owen touched the control panel beside her hibernation pod. Alarms blared. The machinery around the dragon shifted and hummed. Owen stumbled back as systems activated that had been dormant for thousands of years. Frost began melting off the dragon's scales. Her massive chest began rising and falling faster. "Boss, what did you do?" Cal's voice crackled over the radio. Owen couldn't answer. He could only watch as the dragon's eyes opened. They were gold, bright and intelligent and angry. The creature's head rose, frost falling from her like rain. She looked around the cavern, confused. Then her gaze fixed on Owen. The dragon's mouth opened, revealing teeth like swords. Fire built in her throat, turning from red to white hot. Owen stood his ground. He had come too far to run now. This was everything, his last hope, his only chance to make things right. "My name is Owen Reed," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart, "and I need your help." The dragon's fire stopped inches from Owen's face. Heat washed over him, hot enough that his suit's temperature regulators screamed warnings. But the flames didn't touch him. The dragon held them back, watching him with those golden eyes that seemed to see through him. She spoke. The words came out as sounds Owen couldn't understand, deep and rumbling like an avalanche. But his suit's translator kicked in after a few seconds, struggling to process a language it had never encountered. "You are not Dravik. You are not Krivian. You are not any of the species I remember." The dragon lowered her massive head, studying him more closely. "What are you?" "Human. My species is new to space travel. We've only been exploring the galaxy for about 200 years. 200 years. The dragon made a sound that might have been laughter. "I have been sleeping for 3,000. The galaxy must have changed much. It has. My name is Owen Reed. What's yours?" The dragon was quiet for a long moment. "Ashara, I was a guardian of the Sarn people." She looked around the cavern at the other sleeping dragons. "How many of us remain?" "I count about 3,000 in this cavern. There might be more in other chambers. 3,000. We were once 3 million spread across 100 worlds." Ashara's voice carried old pain. "Tell me, human Owen Reed, what has become of the galaxy we left behind?" Owen told her. He explained how various species had formed the Galactic Council, how trade and commerce now connected thousands of worlds, how the Dravik Trade Consortium controlled much of the economy, how humanity had joined this community and discovered they were weak compared to others. Ashara listened without interrupting. When Owen finished, she said, "The Dravik. That name has changed, but I recognize the species. Their ancestors were always ambitious and cruel. It was their kind who destroyed my people. What happened? We were peacekeepers. When disputes arose between species, we intervened. We were strong enough that none dared challenge us, and we were fair enough that most accepted our judgments. But strength breeds fear, and fear breeds treachery." Ashara moved through the cavern, her massive form graceful despite her size. Owen followed, listening. The Dravik ancestors led a coalition of species who feared our power. They invited our leaders to a peace summit, a ceremony to honor cooperation between our peoples. It was a trap. They used antimatter weapons. In one moment, they destroyed our entire command structure and most of our military strength. That's horrible. We who remained tried to fight, but we were outnumbered and leaderless. Some wanted revenge, others wanted to flee. We argued among ourselves while our enemies picked us off one by one. Finally, the elders made a choice. We would hide. We would sleep. Perhaps in the future, the galaxy would be worth returning to. "And now I woke you up," Owen said. "I'm sorry. I didn't know what I was doing. I was desperate." "Desperate for what?" Ashara turned those golden eyes on him again. "Why did you come here, human? Why seek out legends and myths?" Owen pulled up the video on his suit's display. He showed Ashara what happened on Crossroads Station. His beating, Liam's screams, the indifference of the crowd, the council's dismissal of his complaint. Ashara watched without speaking. When the video ended, she said, "Show me the ones who did this." Owen pulled up images of Captain Suroth and his crew. "The Dravik. They refused to pay for my work and then beat me in front of hundreds of witnesses. No one helped. No one cared, because humans are seen as weak. And you came here to change that. I came here because I made a promise to my son. I told him this wouldn't stand. But I'm just one person. I have no power, no influence. The galaxy doesn't care about me or my people, so I looked for someone who might. You looked for us. I looked for the Sarn, dragons who once kept the peace and punished those who broke honor codes. I know it's selfish. I know I'm asking for help from beings who have their own problems. But I didn't know what else to do. Ashara was quiet for a long time. Owen waited, his heart pounding. Everything depended on what she said next. If she told him to leave, he would go back to Earth with nothing. His promise to Liam would mean nothing. The video of his beating would be just another example of human weakness. You are brave, Ashara finally said. Foolish, perhaps, but brave. You came alone to a forbidden system, searching for beings that might have killed you on sight, all for justice and for your son. That takes courage. Or desperation. They are often the same thing. Ashara moved back toward her hibernation chamber. I must consult with the other elders. Waking them will take time. Your ship and crew should return to orbit. This process will take weeks and you will need supplies. You're going to help me? I am going to present your case to my people. Whether they choose to help you will depend on what they decide about the current state of the galaxy and humanity's place in it. We have been burned before by trusting other species. Owen nodded slowly. I understand. Thank you for even considering it. Over the next 3 months, Owen worked with Ashara to restore the ancient systems that maintained the hibernation chambers. The technology was beyond anything he had seen before, but the basic principles made sense. Power flow, temperature regulation, biological monitoring, just on a scale designed for massive beings who could live for millennia. Cal and Priya helped with the technical work, while Boris stood guard, though Owen wasn't sure what he was guarding against. They were alone in a dead system light years from anything. As the weeks passed, more dragons woke. Each one went through the same confusion, the same grief when they learned how much time had passed. But they listened to Owen's story. They watched the video, and they began to debate among themselves in a language the translator couldn't fully process. Owen learned about Sarn culture. Their honor codes were complex but made sense once he understood them. Strength was valued, but so was fairness. They believed that those who had power had a responsibility to use it justly. Breaking an agreement, as the Dravik had done with Owen's contract, was a serious offense. Beating someone while others stood by was cowardice that demanded response. A young dragon named Tyrus became fascinated with humans. He spent hours asking Owen questions about Earth, about human history, about how such a weak species had survived long enough to reach space. Owen showed him videos of human warfare, human exploration, human determination. You are soft-bodied and fragile, Tyrus said, yet you survived on a death world and reached the stars. How? We adapt. We use tools. We work together. We don't give up, Owen smiled. And apparently we're stupid enough to wake up sleeping dragons when we need help. That is not stupidity. That is understanding that strength comes in many forms. You could not beat the Dravik alone, so you sought allies. That is wisdom. The dragon elders finally called a gathering. All 3,000 Sarn assembled in the massive cavern. Owen stood before them, tiny compared to their bulk, and made his case. He didn't just talk about his own beating. He talked about humanity's struggles in a galaxy where they were considered weak. He showed them evidence of other species taking advantage of humans, dismissing their concerns, treating them as lesser beings. He showed them how the Dravik Trade Consortium manipulated council votes and used their influence to avoid consequences. I'm not asking you to fight a war, Owen said. I'm asking you to do what you did before. Keep the peace. Enforce honor. Show the galaxy that strength without justice is just tyranny. An elder dragon with silver scales spoke. And what do humans offer in return? We do not work for free, and we have learned not to trust easily. I offer partnership. Humans are good at building things, fixing things, adapting to new situations. We can help you navigate modern galactic politics. We can be your eyes and ears in places you can't easily go. And maybe, just maybe, if you help us, other species who are being pushed around will find their courage too. The debate went on for hours. Some dragons wanted to return to sleep. Others wanted revenge against the descendants of those who betrayed them. Some saw opportunity in Owen's offer. Others saw another trap. Finally, Ashara spoke. I propose we test this human and his people. We will return to known space. We will address the wrong done to Owen Reed. If humans prove worthy allies, we can expand from there. If they prove treacherous like the old species, we can return to our sleep. The vote was close, but it passed. The Sarn would return to the galaxy. They would start by seeking justice on Crossroads Station. Owen sent an encrypted message to Earth, to Liam. His son had grown harder in the months since Owen left. The boy had spent his time learning combat, studying tactics, preparing himself to never be helpless again. "I'm coming home," Owen's message said, "and I'm bringing friends. Big friends, strong enough to make the Dravik pay, strong enough to show the galaxy that humans are not to be dismissed. Get ready, son. Things are about to change." Liam's reply came 3 days later. Just 2 words about time. Preparing 3,000 dragons for space travel turned out to be complicated. The Sarn didn't need ships in the traditional sense. They could survive in the vacuum of space for extended periods, navigate jump points through methods humans barely understood, and fly between nearby worlds using their own power. But crossing the distance between their hidden system and Crossroads would take years without assistance. The solution came from the dragons themselves. Deep in the cavern system, they had stored massive carrier vessels. The ships were organic-looking, grown rather than built, designed to work with Sarn biology. They had been mothballed for 3,000 years, but the technology still functioned once Owen and his crew figured out how to activate them. "This is insane," Cal said, standing in the control room of the largest carrier. "This ship is alive. It has a nervous system, it thinks." "It's a tool," Ashara corrected, her massive form curled in a chamber designed specifically for dragons. "A very sophisticated one, but still a tool. The ship responds to Sarn mental commands and can carry 500 of us comfortably. They would need 6 carriers to transport everyone." The ships were enormous, each one larger than any human-made vessel. Their hulls were a strange combination of metal and something that looked like dragon scale. Weapon systems lined their exteriors, energy cannons that could tear through modern starship armor. Owen worked with the dragons to bring all the systems online. His mechanical knowledge translated surprisingly well to Sarn technology, once he understood the basic principles. Everything was designed around heat and energy flow, using the same forces that let dragons breathe fire to power their weapons and engines. Tyrus appointed himself as Owen's guide and translator. The young dragon seemed fascinated by the idea of humans and Sarn working together. He spent hours explaining Sarn history and culture while Owen taught him about human engineering and modern galactic politics. "Your people were betrayed by species you trusted," Owen said one day while calibrating a ship's power systems. "Why are you willing to trust humans?" "Because you are weak enough to need us and smart enough to ask for help," Tyrus replied. "The species who betrayed us feared our power. They attacked us because they saw us as a threat. Humans are not a threat, at least not yet. That's kind of insulting. It is honest. But I have watched your history videos. Humans have a quality that many species lose once they become powerful. You still remember what it is like to be vulnerable. You still help each other because you know what happens when no one helps." Owen thought about Crossroads Station, the crowd of aliens watching his beating and doing nothing. Not all humans help each other. No species is perfect. But your capacity for empathy when you have so little power yourselves, that is unusual. Most species only develop compassion after they become strong enough to afford it. Training exercises began once the carriers were operational. Dragons practiced coordinating with each other in space combat scenarios. They worked on formations, communication protocols, and tactical maneuvers. The Sarn had been warriors once, and that knowledge was embedded deep in their culture. Owen watched them fly through space without suits or ships, their scales shimmering with energy that protected them from vacuum and radiation. They moved with impossible grace, banking and diving in 3 dimensions like birds, except these birds could melt through starship hulls with their fire breath. "How are your scales so resistant to damage?" Owen asked Ashara. "Evolution on a volcanic world. Our ancestors lived in environments that would kill most species. We adapted. Our scales can withstand extreme heat, resist most energy weapons, and even deflect kinetic rounds if we're angled correctly." "And the fire breathing?" "A biological fusion reaction in a specialized organ. We consume certain minerals that our bodies convert to fuel. Under the right conditions, we can produce flames hot enough to cut through most materials. You're living weapons. We are survivors who became protectors. There is a difference." Owen sent regular updates to Liam. His son had moved back home, refusing to stay with Owen's sister any longer. The boy was technically old enough to be alone for a few months, though it still worried Owen. But Liam was different now, harder, more focused. "I've been training," Liam wrote in one message. "Physical conditioning, combat tactics, even some basic engineering. When you get back, I want to help. I want to be part of this." Owen stared at the message for a long time before responding. His son was 13 now, still a child by human standards. But the galaxy didn't care about human standards. Liam had been forced to grow up the day he watched his father get beaten. Maybe it was time to let him take some responsibility. "When I get back, we'll talk about it," Owen wrote. "But you need to understand something. This isn't about revenge. This is about justice. There's a difference." 4 months after Owen first woke Ashara, the Sarn fleet was ready. 6 massive carriers, each holding 500 dragons. 3,000 of the most powerful beings the galaxy had forgotten. They ran final system checks and plotted jump coordinates. Owen stood on the command deck of the lead carrier with Ashara. His crew had transferred to this ship. Cal was fascinated by the technology. Priya loved flying something so massive. Boris had spent weeks studying the weapon systems and declared them beautiful. "Are you ready?" Ashara asked. "No," Owen admitted. "I have no idea what's going to happen when we arrive at Crossroads. The Galactic Council might attack us. The Dravik might flee. This could start a war, or it could start something better. Justice has always been uncomfortable for those who benefit from injustice." Ashara's golden eyes fixed on the view screen showing the dead red star they were leaving behind. "My people slept for 3,000 years because we lost hope. You gave us a reason to wake up. Whatever happens next, that is worth something." The jump to Crossroads would take 3 stages, each one bringing them closer to inhabited space. They would give the galaxy time to realize the Sarn were returning. Let the news spread. Let the fear build. That was part of Ashara's strategy. The Sarn's reputation, their legend, was a weapon they could use before any battle began. The first jump brought them to a remote system on the edge of known space. An automated trading post detected their arrival and sent a distress signal across the galactic network. 6 enormous unknown vessels had appeared, no match in any database. Scans suggested organic components and massive energy signatures. The second jump put them 2 systems away from Crossroads. This time, inhabited stations and colonies detected their approach. The Galactic Council received reports of mysterious ships approaching from deep space, ships that matched ancient descriptions of Sarn carriers from historical records. Panic began to spread. The Council sent long-range messages demanding identification. Ashara ignored them. The Sarn had not been part of the Council when they went to sleep, and they did not recognize its authority now. They answered to older laws, older codes of honor. Owen sent a message to Liam. "We're close, maybe 2 days out. I need you to stay on Earth. Things are going to get dangerous." Liam's reply came within the hour. "I'm already on a transport heading to Crossroads. I'll meet you there. Don't try to stop me." Owen wanted to be angry, but he couldn't. His son was brave enough to face what came next. That took courage. The same courage Owen had shown when he went looking for sleeping dragons. "He's like you," Tyrus observed, reading Owen's expression. "Stubborn and brave. That's going to get him killed someday. Perhaps. Or perhaps it will make him a legend. Time will tell." The third jump brought them within sensor range of Crossroads Station. Every ship in the sector detected their arrival. 3,000 dragons emerged from the carriers, filling space with their massive forms. They arranged themselves in a formation that had been used millennia ago, a display of power and coordination that spoke of military might. Crossroads Station went into full alert. Defensive systems activated. Ships began evacuating. The Galactic Council sent emergency broadcasts demanding the unknown. Vessels identify themselves and state their intentions. Ashara opened a communication channel that every ship and station in the sector could hear. Her voice, ancient and powerful, echoed across all frequencies. "I am Ashara, guardian of the Sarn people. We have returned from our long sleep. We come seeking justice under the old laws that governed this galaxy before your council existed, laws that your ancestors swore to uphold, laws that have been forgotten but not erased." Silence filled the channel. Then chaos as everyone tried to respond at once. Ashara continued. "We seek Captain Suroth of the Dravik Trade Consortium. He has broken sacred laws of honor. He will face judgment. Any who interfere will be considered enemies of justice." Owen watched the station on the view screen. Somewhere inside, Suroth was probably panicking. Somewhere inside, the beings who had watched Owen get beaten were realizing that actions had consequences. "Dad?" Liam's voice came over a private channel. "I'm on the station. Docking Bay 42. I can see them. The dragons. They're real. Stay out of sight," Owen said. "This could get violent. I know. That's why I'm here." Owen closed his eyes. His son was braver than he had been at that age. Braver than he had any right to be. But maybe that was what the galaxy needed. Humans who were brave enough to stand up for themselves. Brave enough to make allies of dragons. "Suroth is trying to leave the station," Boris reported from the weapons station. "His ship just undocked." "Stop him," Ashara commanded, gently. "We want him alive for trial." 20 dragons broke formation and intercepted Suroth's ship. They surrounded it, their scales glowing with heat. The Dravik vessel tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. Dragonfire melted through its engines, disabling it without destroying the ship. They dragged Suroth's vessel back to the station like a cat bringing home a mouse. The message was clear. The Sarn had returned, and they were done asking permission to enforce justice. The Galactic Council representatives arrived at Crossroads Station within hours. 5 species sent their most senior diplomats, and they all looked terrified. The Sarn carriers hung in space around the station like silent threats, and dragons patrolled the area in formations that spoke of military precision. Owen stood with Ashara in a commandeered conference room. The station administrators had not exactly volunteered the space, but they also had not refused when 3 massive dragons asked for it. Liam stood beside his father, wearing simple clothes but standing tall. The boy had grown in the months Owen had been gone. Not just in height, but in presence. The council diplomats filed in. A Rothani with 4 arms and elaborate robes. A Krivian whose insectoid features made it hard for humans to read emotions. 2 species Owen didn't recognize, and notably no Dravik representatives. "This is a violation of council space," the Rothani diplomat began. "You cannot simply appear with a military force and make demands." Ashara regarded him with golden eyes. "The Sarn recognize no council authority. We predate your organization by millennia. We answer to the old laws, the codes that govern this galaxy, before your species even reach space. Those laws are obsolete. They have no legal standing. They were never repealed. Your council simply chose to ignore them because following them would be inconvenient. But inconvenience does not erase obligation." The Krivian diplomat clicked its mandibles. "What exactly do you want?" "Justice," Owen said, speaking for the first time. The diplomats looked at him with surprise, apparently not expecting a human to have any authority here. "Captain Suroth of the Dravik Trade Consortium violated a contract, refused payment, and then ordered me beaten in front of hundreds of witnesses. Station security did nothing. The council ruled it outside their jurisdiction. Under the old honor codes that the Sarn enforced, this is a crime that demands response. You brought an ancient military force back from extinction because you didn't get paid for a repair job." The Rothani's tone was incredulous. "No," Ashara said coldly. "He came looking for help because your galaxy has forgotten what honor means. Because the strong prey on the weak and call it business. Because justice has become something you can buy or ignore depending on your influence." "The Sarn were supposed to be myths," one of the unknown species said quietly. "We let you believe that. We hoped that removing ourselves would allow other species to develop their own systems of justice. Instead, you developed systems of convenience where those with power make rules that benefit themselves." Ashara leaned forward, and the diplomats leaned back. "That ends now. What do you want?" The Krivian asked again. "A trial. Under Sarn law, Captain Suroth will face charges for breaking a sworn contract and for unprovoked violence. The trial will be public, broadcast across the galaxy. Your council will have the opportunity to present their case for why this should not happen. And if we refuse, then we will enforce the old laws ourselves, and your council will be judged for enabling corruption and injustice. You may not like the Sarn, but you know our history. We do not make empty threats." The diplomats requested time to consult with their governments. Ashara gave them 2 hours. Owen watched them leave, then turned to his son. "You shouldn't be here. Where else would I be?" Liam met his father's eyes. "This started with me. I watched you get beaten. I screamed for help and nobody came. I'm not going to hide while you finish it." "He has earned his place," Tyrus said, entering the conference room. The young dragon had to curl his body to fit through the doorway. "He traveled here alone, knowing it might be dangerous. That takes courage. He's 13. Age is less important than character. I have met ancient beings with no courage and young ones who could lead armies. Your son has the heart of a warrior. Owen wanted to argue, but he saw the determination in Liam's face. The boy had changed. The trauma of watching his father's beating had either broken something in him or forged it stronger. Owen hoped it was the latter. The council's response came within the allotted time. They would allow the trial, but with conditions. It would be held in neutral space, not on Crossroads Station. Independent observers would be present, and the council would have the right to appeal any judgment that they felt violated modern legal standards. They are trying to control the narrative, Ashara said, but we will accept. This trial is not just about Owen Reed. It is about showing the galaxy that the old ways still have power. Preparation for the trial took 3 days. The location was chosen, a point in space equidistant from Crossroads, the nearest council world, and the Sarn carriers. A massive platform was assembled, open to space, with holographic walls providing atmosphere for species that needed it. Billions across the galaxy tuned in to watch. Owen stood on the platform with Liam beside him. Ashara and 5 other Sarn elders took positions as judges. Captain Surath was brought out in restraints, flanked by station security. The Dravik looked smaller now, less imposing without his crew to back him up. The trial was simple and brutal. Owen presented his case. He showed the contract. He showed his completed work and the diagnostic reports proving everything met specifications. He showed the video of what happened next. The galaxy watched as Surath and his crew dragged Owen into the concourse. They watched the beating. They heard Liam screaming. They saw the crowd doing nothing. They saw security turning away. "Did you order this?" Ashara asked Surath. "It was a business dispute," Surath said, his translator making his voice sound defensive. The human was insolent. He needed to learn respect. By beating him in front of his child, he should have known his place. The words hung in the air. Surath realized his mistake too late. He had just admitted to everything in front of billions of witnesses. More than that, he had revealed the attitude that allowed it to happen, the casual cruelty of someone who believed himself untouchable. The council representatives tried to argue that modern laws should apply, that violence was already illegal under their legal system, that the Sarn had no authority to enforce judgments. Ashara listened patiently, then began pulling up records. Evidence of corruption. Cases where the council had looked the other way when powerful species or corporations broke laws. Trade agreements that favored certain species while exploiting others. Security forces that protected the influential while ignoring crimes against the weak. "Your system is broken," Ashara declared. "It was built by the powerful to protect the powerful. You speak of laws, but laws without enforcement are just words. The Sarn will now enforce the old codes. Those who break faith, who betray contracts, who use violence against the helpless, will face consequences. You cannot appoint yourselves as galactic police," the Rothani diplomat protested. "Watch us." The judgment came swiftly. Under Sarn law, Surath had committed crimes of dishonor. But rather than simply declaring him guilty, Ashara made an announcement that shocked everyone watching. "Captain Surath, you commanded 3 warriors in your attack on Owen Reed. Under the old codes, you will face 3 opponents in combat trial. If you defeat them, your honor is restored. If you lose, you accept exile and the dissolution of your trading authority." Surath looked relieved. He was a trained fighter, and he would face a human mechanic, a human child, and whoever else they chose. He could win this. "I accept," Surath said. "Good. Your opponents will be Owen Reed, his son Liam Reed, and the Sarn warrior Tyrus." The relief drained from Surath's face. A dragon. They were including a dragon as one of the 3 opponents. He tried to protest, but Ashara cut him off. "You brought 3 against 1. Now you face 3. The trial will be fair, but it will not be easy. That is justice." Owen hadn't expected this. He looked at Ashara. "I'm not a fighter. You are a father protecting his son. That makes you more dangerous than any trained warrior. And Liam has been training, has he not?" Liam nodded slowly. "I have. I've been learning to fight since the day you left. Then you both have earned the right to face your attacker. Tyrus will be there to ensure the fight remains fair. But this is your justice to claim." The combat trial was scheduled for the next day. Owen spent the time training with Liam, going over basics of combat tactics. His son knew more than he expected. The boy had been studying combat videos, practicing forms, building his strength. Liam was still small, still young, but he moved with purpose. Tyrus joined them for strategy sessions. Surath will expect you to be weak, use that. Let him think he is winning, then strike together. Coordination beats individual strength. What if I freeze up? Owen asked. What if I can't do this in front of everyone? You already did the hard part, Tyrus said. You went looking for sleeping dragons because you refused to accept injustice. Fighting one Dravik should be easy after that. That night Owen couldn't sleep. He lay in his quarters on the Sarn carrier, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. A broken contract, a beating, months of research, finding the Sarn, and now he was going to fight the being who had hurt him while billions watched. Liam knocked on his door. Dad, you awake? Yeah, come in. His son sat on the edge of the bed. I'm scared. Me too. But we're going to do it anyway? Yeah, we are. Owen put his arm around his son. Because sometimes being brave means being scared and doing the thing anyway. And because we're not alone this time. We have allies. We have the Sarn. Why did they help us? Really? Owen thought about that. Because Ashara saw something in us that reminded her of what the Sarn used to be. Protectors. People who stood up for what was right even when it was hard. And maybe because she was tired of sleeping while the galaxy forgot what honor meant. Do you think we can win? I think we already won. We brought the Sarn back. We showed the galaxy that humans don't just accept being pushed around. Whether we beat Surath tomorrow or not, we've already changed things. But Owen hoped they would win anyway, not for revenge. For closure, for justice, and to show his son that standing up for yourself could work. The combat platform floated in space, a circular arena 50 meters across with holographic barriers that provided atmosphere and gravity. Billions watched through live feeds broadcast across the galaxy. Ships from dozens of species held position at a safe distance. The Sarn carriers formed a perimeter, silent and imposing. Owen stood on one side of the platform with Liam and Tyrus. His son wore light armor that Ashara had provided, scaled-down Sarn technology adapted for humans. Owen wore similar protection. His hands shook slightly, but he kept his breathing steady. Across from them, Captain Surath waited with his own armor and weapons. The Dravik had chosen a plasma blade and a kinetic shield. He looked confident, even cocky. He outweighed Owen by at least 50 kilograms, had longer reach, and was trained in combat. On paper, this should be an easy win. But Surath had made a mistake. He had agreed to the trial. He had admitted his crimes. And now he faced not just Owen, but Owen's son and a dragon who represented 3,000 years of warrior tradition. Ashara's voice boomed across the platform. This is a trial of honor under the old codes. Captain Surath stands accused of breaking a sworn contract and inflicting violence on a weaker party. Owen Reed, Liam Reed, and Tyrus stand as challengers. The combat will continue until Surath yields, is incapacitated, or is defeated. Let all who watch remember that justice, though delayed, cannot be forever denied. The holographic walls lit up, marking the boundary of the combat zone. Owen felt his heart hammering in his chest. He looked at Liam, saw his own fear reflected in his son's eyes, but also determination. They had come too far to back down now. Ready? Tyrus asked quietly. No, Owen admitted. But let's do it anyway. The signal sounded. Surath charged immediately, going for Owen. The Dravik was fast, faster than Owen expected. The plasma blade came down in an arc that would have taken Owen's head off if he hadn't rolled aside. Liam darted in from the side, striking at Surath's legs with a shock baton Ashara had provided. The blow landed, but the Dravik's armor absorbed most of it. Surath backhanded Liam, sending the boy sliding across the platform. Owen felt rage surge through him. The same protective fury that had driven him to seek out the Sarn in the first place. He threw himself at Surath, forgetting technique, just wanting to hurt the being who had struck his son. Owen, focus. Tyrus's voice cut through his anger. Strategy, not emotion. Owen forced himself to think. They had planned this. Surath expected him to be weak, to fight like someone with no training. They needed to use coordination, use the fact that there were 3 of them. Liam recovered and circled to the left. Owen moved right. Tyrus stayed back, watching but not intervening yet. The dragon had promised to step in only if things became unfair. This was Owen's fight, Owen's justice. Tyrus was there as insurance. Surath turned to face Owen, plasma blade ready. Owen feinted forward, then rolled backward as the blade cut through the space where he had been. Liam struck from behind, hitting the same leg as before. This time the shock baton found a gap in the armor. Suroth roared in pain and spun, but Liam was already moving away. You taught him well, Suroth growled at Owen. Coward tactics, striking from behind. Says the being who had 3 crew members hold me down while you beat me, Owen shot back. The words hit harder than any weapon. Suroth's face twisted with anger. He charged again, but this time his movements were sloppier, driven by emotion rather than training. Owen and Liam worked together, one drawing Suroth's attention while the other struck from angles he couldn't defend. Small hits accumulating damage, wearing him down. Across the galaxy, humans watched their own kind fighting back, not with overwhelming strength or advanced technology, but with determination and tactics. Messages flooded human networks. People who had been pushed around, dismissed, and treated as lesser beings saw what was possible. The fight dragged on. Owen took hits that his armor absorbed. Liam got knocked down twice but kept getting back up. Suroth was stronger, but he was fighting 2 opponents who refused to stay down, and who were learning his patterns. And behind them, Tyrus waited like a promise of what would happen if Suroth broke the rules. Finally, Owen saw an opening. Suroth overextended on a strike meant for Liam. Owen hit him in the side with everything he had, not with a weapon but with his shoulder, driving the Dravik off balance. Liam was already there with the shock baton, striking the same leg they had been targeting. Suroth went down on one knee. Yield, Owen said, breathing hard. Suroth looked up at him with hatred. Never! The Dravik tried to rise, but his damaged leg wouldn't support him properly. He swung the plasma blade in a wild arc that Owen barely avoided. Liam struck again, and this time the shock went through armor and into muscle. Suroth's blade dropped from his hand. I said yield, Owen repeated. For a moment it looked like Suroth would refuse. Pride warred with reality on his face. Then his gaze shifted to Tyrus, to the dragon who had been waiting patiently for any sign that the fight needed intervention. Suroth realized that if he didn't yield, the dragon would finish what Owen and Liam had started. I yield, Suroth said, the words bitter. Ashara's voice rang out across the platform. The trial is concluded. Owen Reed and his son have proven their claim. Captain Suroth is found guilty of crimes against honor. Judgment is as follows. Suroth is stripped of his rank and trading authority. He is exiled from Dravik space and forbidden from holding any position of power in the trade consortium. His assets are forfeit to pay restitution to Owen Reed for the contracted work he completed and the injuries he suffered. Suroth's face showed pure shock. He had lost everything. Not just the fight, but his position, his wealth, his influence. All because he had thought himself above consequences. But Ashara wasn't done. Furthermore, the Galactic Council is hereby notified that the Sarn have returned to active duty as peacekeepers. The old codes are in effect. Those who break faith, betray contracts, or prey upon the weak will face judgment. The Council may continue their operations, but they do not have exclusive authority. The galaxy will have to learn to be just, not merely convenient. The Council representatives tried to protest, but their voices were drowned out by reactions from across the galaxy. Species that had suffered under the current system were celebrating. Others were terrified. The power structure that had existed for thousands of years had just been challenged by beings who predated it. Owen helped Liam to his feet. His son had a bruise forming on his face, but was grinning. We did it. We actually did it. Yeah, we did. Owen pulled his son into a hug. I'm sorry you had to grow up so fast. I'm not. If I hadn't grown up, I wouldn't be here now. I wouldn't have helped make this happen. Tyrus approached them, his massive form somehow gentle in movement. You fought well. Both of you. You used your weaknesses as strengths. That is the mark of true warriors. We're not warriors, Owen said. We're just people who were tired of being pushed around. That is what makes you dangerous. You have nothing to prove, which means you will take risks that trained fighters will not. And you fight not for glory or power, but for justice. That gives you strength that technique alone cannot match. The Dravik took Suroth away. The combat platform began to dissolve. Owen and Liam were transported back to the Sarn carrier where Ashara waited. What happens now? Owen asked. Now the galaxy adjusts to a new reality, Ashara said. The Sarn will establish bases in key systems. We will monitor for crimes of dishonor. We will not rule the galaxy, but we will keep the peace in the old ways, and humans will be our first formal allies. Why us? We're still weak compared to most species. Weak in body, perhaps. But you showed something more important. You showed that even the smallest voice can wake sleeping giants if it speaks truth loudly enough. That is a quality worth having in an ally. Messages flooded in from Earth. The human government wanted to establish formal diplomatic relations with the Sarn. They wanted Owen to serve as ambassador. Other species were also reaching out, wanting to know if the Sarn would protect them from the excesses of the powerful. "I'm not a diplomat," Owen told Ashara. "I'm a mechanic." "You are a father who sought justice for his son. That makes you more qualified than most diplomats. You understand why the old codes matter. You understand what happens when the strong can prey on the weak without consequence." Owen looked at Liam. His son had been through trauma that no child should face. But he had also been part of something larger. They had changed the galaxy together, not through conquest or technology, but through courage and the refusal to accept injustice. "What do you want to do?" Owen asked his son. "We can go home. Live quietly. This is over if you want it to be." Liam shook his head. "This isn't over. This is just starting. You showed me that standing up for yourself works if you're brave enough and smart enough. I want to help other people do the same thing. I want to work with the Sarn." "You're 13. I'm 13 and I just helped beat a Dravik captain in front of billions of people. Age doesn't matter if you have courage." Tyrus laughed, a sound like rumbling thunder. "I like him. He can train with us. We will teach him the old ways." Over the following weeks, the galaxy reorganized itself around a new reality. The Dravik Trade Consortium lost much of its power, as other species found the courage to challenge their monopolies. The Galactic Council was forced to reform its legal systems under threat of Sarn oversight. Species that had been exploited began speaking up, knowing they now had protectors. Humans found themselves in a unique position. They were still physically weaker than most species, still newcomers to galactic politics, but they were known now as the species that had woken the Sarn, the species brave enough to seek allies when they needed help, and smart enough to make it work. Owen accepted the position as ambassador, with Liam as his apprentice. They worked with the Sarn to establish new systems of justice that balanced modern reality with ancient honor codes. It was hard work, and there was resistance from species that preferred the old corrupt system. But every time someone tried to dismiss human concerns or treat them as lesser beings, they remembered. They remembered Owen Reed getting beaten on Crossroads Station. They remembered his refusal to accept that injustice. They remembered 3,000 dragons appearing because one mechanic had the courage to seek them out. Ashara told Owen something that stayed with him. "In all our history, we have never seen a species like humans. You are soft and weak and vulnerable. You live short lives and have limited power, but you refuse to let those things stop you. You adapt, you find allies, you use your minds when your bodies are not strong enough. That is not weakness. That is a different kind of strength." Owen stood on the observation deck of the Sarn carrier looking at the stars. Liam stood beside him, already taller than he had been when this started. His son would grow up in a galaxy that was better than the one Owen had known. Not perfect, but better. More just. More willing to protect the weak instead of exploiting them. "Do you think we made a difference?" Liam asked. Owen thought about that question. About the species that were now speaking up. About the reforms being implemented. About the way other species looked at humans now, with respect instead of dismissal. "Yeah," Owen said. "We made a difference. We showed the galaxy that standing up to bullies works if you're willing to seek help and work together. That's not a small thing." "Good, because I'm not done yet. There's still a lot of injustice out there." Owen smiled. His son had grown from a traumatized boy into someone who wanted to make the galaxy better. That was worth all the pain and fear and risk. That was worth waking dragons and changing civilizations. The Sarn patrolled trade lanes now, their presence a reminder that honor codes still mattered. Pirates and corrupt officials found themselves facing consequences they had avoided for centuries. Trade became more fair. Contracts were honored. The weak had protectors, and humans, those soft-bodied newcomers who barely registered as a threat, were known across the galaxy as the species that woke sleeping dragons, the species that refused to accept their assigned place, the species that changed everything by refusing to be victims. It started with a beating in a station concourse. It ended with justice and dragons and a galaxy learning to be better. Owen Reed, mechanic, had kept his promise to his son. Things would never be the same.